Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline, I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz, I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts! Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show.
Okay, so here we are. We are doing some throwback episodes. So
that
right?
is so exciting.
Getting close to 400. So we had 400 episodes.
That's a lot of episodes. It's a
that's
lot
a lot
of wonderful tips and tricks.
Yes. So for any of our new listeners, it's the holidays. So we're going to reshare with you some old episodes. If you're new around here, you might not have gone back and listened to like any of the early ones. We have so many, right? So kind of going into this episode, I kind of was, scrolling through and marked 4 to 5 that I was like, I think these are going to be my favorites. These are the ones that in my memory, I just really enjoyed, but I wanted to go back and listen to them and make sure that the design advice and the tips and the discussion was as insightful as I remember, just so that people are getting good bang for their buck, right, for the episode. I can tell you who I listened to, but the one that I was I'm picking one that I was a little bit surprised by. I knew I enjoyed meeting this designer, but when I went and listened back, I was like, God, she is brilliant. I just loved this episode so much. It is Atlanta interior designer Susan Ferrier. It was episode number 84. So this was when we were recording in person. She came to our office. Absolutely lovely. I had known of her work for a long time. She was a designer with Bobby McAlpin for a long time, who's also been a guest. And then I think maybe about 5 years ago, she started her own design firm. And she's such a talent. And listening back, I knew I enjoyed speaking with her. I knew that I loved her work, or like her body of work, but she just is so insightful. And the episode I thought was chock full of great little nuggets. There were so many takeaways that I had, even just listening back. I was thinking like, there were so many things, I think partially the timing and when we interviewed her, right? I believe it was around spring, summer of 2019, which was right when I bought my house. And so listening back, I was like, oh, I did that. Oh, that was great advice. I ended up doing that. As I was re-listening, I was remembering like all of this stuff that I did. I didn't necessarily remember that she was the one that planted that seed, but I put it into practice, I guess. For example, like we talked for a little while about using your view and putting things in front of the view to draw your eye to the view, which seems, I think, to many counterproductive, like you're blocking the view. But really, by putting something in front of the view, like a chair, a piece of furniture, a piece of art, you're really drawing the eye to the view. And so you're going to admire the view more. And that was something that I did in our living dining room. For example, when we toured the house, the old owners, they had the sofa facing the window. I have the sofa in the window facing away from the window. But for one, it really just like draws your eye over the window because that's where the sofa is. But also when you're sitting on the sofa, you're looking out over the view. And so there were just lots of little things. We talked about textures. We talked about light and dark. We talked about metals. And
she plays a lot with light and dark.
And a ton with texture.
Yeah.
Not a lot of pattern, but a ton of texture.
And a ton of contrast. And I'm not usually a light and dark. That's not usually what I am drawn to. God, she just is so smart. Anyway, yeah. I just was listening back and was thinking like, this is so good. I need to listen again. 4th time.
Yeah. That is a really fantastic episode. And I think folks are really going to enjoy re-listening to that one because there's just so many takeaways and she's so brilliant. And I feel like her approach to design is almost more like an artist approaching a canvas or a sculpture. She just has such a great sensibility.
Totally. She really, I think when you look at her portfolio, it is so dramatic.
Yes, I was going to say.
Like the types of pieces she's using.
It's almost theatrical.
But she's so practical. So I highly recommend this episode. I didn't think that it was going to be my top, but Susan Ferrier. She was a great guest. We got to have her back. Long overdue as a return guest.
And she's a great follow on Instagram. She definitely is always posting her work. So if you're one of those that likes a really focused Instagram of like design, she's a really good one.
Well, let's let everybody listen to it because I know that after that intro, hopefully they're eager to hear what she has to say. We are so excited to have today award-winning decorator Susan Ferrier. She is known for creating sensuous, atmospheric interiors. Your work has been featured in the New York Times, Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, Veranda, House Beautiful, Traditional Home, Atlanta Homes and Lifestyle, Harper's
Anywhere that
Bazaar.
matters.
Yes, all of your favorite.
All the publications.
All of your favorite publications. And after more than 18 years as a partner at architecture and design firm McAlpine, you started your own design firm, Susan Ferrier Interiors.
That
You're
takes some
also
guts.
the co-author of a book, Art of the House by Rizzoli. Did I cover everything?
I think you did. I mean, I'm tell me more.
I'm awesome.
You don't often get a chance to listen to somebody talk about you.
That's true.
true.
We're going to talk about you all day.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I feel like if anyone were to look at your portfolio, their first thought would be like drama, bold, scale,
I agree.
right?
Drama. But no pattern, almost no pattern.
No, I like texture.
Uh-huh.
I like texture. I think that the people in the room need to be the pattern.
Ooh.
Oh, I love that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I noticed you use
You
a
should be the most
hide.
interesting thing in your own room.
That's true.
Yes.
My poor rooms.
It depends on what day.
That's true. And what time of day?
Only when you entertain, you should be the most interesting thing in your room.
Okay.
All right.
How's that?
That's fair.
pretty
Yeah. Not when you're watching Netflix.
Oh, no, then you're very boring.
Well, I was going to say with the texture, I noticed you had like hides on consoles, on walls, I felt like everything.
Yeah, in the past and now, I like to use a lot of texture in every way. So on trays, I think that people shouldn't be afraid of that. And when you don't use pattern, because sometimes I find pattern really can date a room, and you are trying to honor the investment that the client has made. So you want that interior to last 10, 15, 20 years. There's things that I've done in the past that I've revisited. And I asked myself, what would I change? Well, when their young children became teenagers and they stained something, that's usually what we address. But yeah, I'm not afraid of using hides in every application.
That is a really
and-
great strategy, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's kind of amazing that you've revisited things after 20 years and you're like, yep, I was right on.
Yeah.
Well, go me.
Solid. Pat myself. Well, and dark colors.
Yeah.
I mean, like either dark walls or a lot of dark fabric covering walls, I think that speaks to the drama that Caroline was saying.
I like to create shadow with light. And because I limit the patterns that I use, and I don't like to use vibrant color all the time, I think that you have to create shadow and light with more than your light fixtures or your lamps. You can do it with reflectivity and the colors that you use or the tones that you use in your interior. So I do like dark colors. I honestly feel like they make you feel, warm, safe, and they're very calming.
Uh-huh.
So I think opposites attract.
And then how do you light a room with all that dark? Because I noticed you do have a lot of lamps.
Well,
which
I do.
I love.
I think that every place that you sit in a room, you should be able to read and have a drink. So you should have a place to set down a cocktail or a water, and you should also have a way to read something in front of you. So a lot of times, I think that we use really large lamps for drama, but then we use kind of pharmacy lamps just to light the exact area or the page where you're at.
Okay, I saw something in one of your images I've never seen before, which it was awesome. Never even thought of it. You had 2 floor lamps next to a big tub. I thought that was the coolest idea ever.
Well, you have to see.
That's right. You got to read in the
A
tub.
lot of people read in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember that house. Yeah.
It was such a great idea. And it just looked so, I don't know, it just made the whole thing look really finished.
Well, I was thinking about them as soldiers. I felt like they guarded the tub. They were almost in waiting. They were in service of the tub. Do you know?
And me when I'm in the tub.
Yeah, it's a very I'm picturing Beauty and the Beast almost.
Yeah, it's a tub butler.
I will light your reading.
It definitely makes it so you would be more likely to go. It's like a destination, I guess.
Yeah. And also I think that when you're furnishing someone, when you decorate a house, I think that you have to think about architecturally creating a rhythm in every room. And a lot of times a pair of sentries or soldiers in the form of a lamp or a sculpture or a candle, sometimes ground it and give an area more importance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like framing. Those lamps framed that tub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Symmetry does feel like really formal. So I guess that's kind of, yeah.
And I noticed a
Makes
lot of
sense.
your rooms felt symmetrical, but when you really kind of dug into it, they weren't.
Well, I feel like you should follow the rules up to a point, and then you need to break something really big, because you want every piece that you do or every home that you work on, you want it to be unique to itself. And so many rooms, I think now, look so much alike that I think that we are attracted as human beings to very calm and symmetrical spaces. So I try to follow the rules to a point and keep things balanced. But then at some point, you've got to introduce the individuality and the person in the room and break that rule so that it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I've noticed too, you speaking to that kind of breaking it up, even a lot of dining tables or along a bar, you haven't matched
Right.
exact
Not
chairs
matching
or bar
chairs.
stools.
Ooh,
Is that
that's
part
boring.
of
And honestly, you want it to look like a home with personalities. There's many personalities that exist in a home. And when you put the same chair around a table, then it gets more businesslike
Mhm.
and it's not quite as comfortable.
Interesting.
I'm like, we're all just like slack-jawed right here.
I like that.
Because that's genius. I mean, that's true. It does feel like a conference table like we're sitting in right now.
Right.
I did glance. I was like, uh-oh.
All the same serious.
Uh-oh.
The other thing I noticed that I feel like you love is a C table. Like those tables that are shaped like C's that like tuck into a chair or tuck into a chaise. I mean, I feel like every room's got one or two and they're all different.
Well, again, it's back to that thing where I feel like you need to have a place to stick a drink.
Mm-hmm.
And they are different. And it's something that's been really discovered in the marketplace for being a great opportunity to save space.
Mm.
And people like to tuck back into a deep sofa and then just imagine having to lean forward to get to the table. It's just too much trouble. You're
I'm
gonna,
exhausted. I
a
can't
sippy
reach
cup
my
with
coffee.
a straw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just much more elegant to have the table come to you
Mhm.
and float above the arm or the seat.
Mhm.
So that is just, if I use those a lot, it's because I feel like they're really practical.
And great textures too on a lot of those I was looking at.
you.
Beautiful.
You also use a lot of banquettes, it looked like. Do you love a banquette?
We've been studying you. Can you
Oh my
tell?
gosh, I'm getting a little, I'm glad I'm prepared on this. So,
I know me.
I do love banquettes for two reasons. Number one, my clients love them. 9 times out of 10, if you said, what's the top 5 things that you want in your house? Always, it appears, a banquette.
Really?
Will be on that list because they're so snuggly and they're cozy. And it's the ultimate have your back up against the wall. So a lot of people have that protected, safe space.
Mm-hmm.
But in a practical sense, a banquette will allow you to put more people at a table because you don't have to have that 3 feet of circulation space behind the chair.
So you can mush it up closer.
Yeah. So I want to say it's a function of greed. You want to be able to get as many people as possible around your table.
Mhm.
Oh, and the way you've curved the backs and some of the custom upholstery you've done, you can tell it fits the space and the archarchitecture and it
Made
changes
just for
the
that
look.
room.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Good job.
Great job.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
feel like we should back up a little bit.
Okay. Sorry.
And no, I think
That's all
it's
my
fun
fault.
to dive
I
right
dove in.
But
I dove
I want to
straight
know
in.
about how you sort of got into
Oh, yeah.
the business and about how and why you decided to start your own firm, because I feel like that
It's a big step.
must have been a big change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was. Design for me is a compulsion. And I can't stop myself. So how I got into the business was I just failed at everything else until I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. And then I conveniently started to succeed. So you can't stop what moves you. And I will say that design for me is all consuming. I think a lot of designers that do this recognize that they're compulsive about the need.
I just want to point out that you're arranging the paper on the table in a very certain way while you're talking about being compulsive. I love it.
I'm OCD. But I just don't think that I could stop myself. And I tried to do other things, much more lucrative things, but I just wasn't happy. So as far as starting my own firm, I started my own firm about a year ago, and it just seemed like the natural next step. You've been doing this for so long, and I think as women, we want to find a way to express ourselves, and we'd like to have our voices heard. And I felt like it was just time. And in fact, I thought I was late. So, you're always busy taking care of people and taking care of a client or your staff or somebody. And the decision to start my own firm was kind of to address myself. And, it's just one more step in that long road of self-actualization. Why am I on this planet? Why am I here? How can I be the best me that I can be? And I can say, as a woman of a certain age,
32.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that that was in the forefront of my mind, and I've actually really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Yeah, how has life changed since you now have your own firm? More stress, less stress, same stress?
I think the stress shifts a little bit, but it's the same amount of stress. I've always been really deeply involved in every aspect of it. So it's the same amount of stress. Yeah.
Did you steal a bunch of clients?
No.
Just kidding.
No, they were my clients.
Okay. It's like lawyers.
Yeah.
So when a lawyer leaves a firm, they get to take their clients. And so same with designers?
Yeah.
Oh,
you
okay.
have the relationship with that person. When you design for somebody, it's really personal. And you have conversations monthly, weekly, some daily. It all depends on what the job requires. And so those relationships are at the forefront. And that's why the design is good. And the design looks like the person that lives in the house. And that's really important. When you look at some of the things that I've done over the years, there might be a common feeling. There might be some techniques that you can recognize that you've been sharing with me that you've seen in my work. But every house that I do has to look like the people or the couple that lives there. And they're the muse.
How do you get inspired by it? Is there ever a time where you're like, I just can't grab onto something about this couple or this homeowner? Or is it easy? You just go in there and you get to know them?
You have to kind of dig in. I feel like I'm a really highly social person. So you just have to keep trying and you have to be really persistent. And you'll find that when you ask somebody about themselves, they want to share and talk about what they like, what they're attracted to. I mean, look at me right now. You're asking me about me and I'd be more than happy to talk about me. I think you'll find that's human nature.
Right.
How do you balance your client with your sense of style that they've hired?
That is a good word, balance, and it's a negotiation. And you have to remember that you're the expert. And I have to remember that I'm the expert and there was something in my work that they recognized and they want. So I feel it's really important to establish what I call a thesis statement or the presentation. And then it's my job to stick to it. So it's a constant conversation, going back and forth, reminding people of what they were attracted to, why they called me.
Because they're afraid, I bet.
Well, putting together a successful room is a lot more difficult and a lot more technical than people think. And there's a ton of people out there that have really good taste and are really exposed. Everybody can be a great shopper. But it's about the relationships of the pieces that you put in that room and how they react to each other. That is really what the designer is an expert at. And I think we've all seen rooms where that piece is beautiful and this piece is gorgeous, but for some reason they detract from each other and they don't kind of add to the full feeling or beauty of the room. So it's kind of like, I refer to myself as a visual mathematician. I address chair heights, table heights, lighting levels. All those things need to be placed in a rhythm that moves your eye through the room at a pace that's comfortable, soothing, and beautiful. And I think that's where elegance comes from.
Yeah. Well, I would also imagine that a beautiful chair is all well and good, but if it's not in the right place or if it's not laid out properly, then it doesn't work. It doesn't look beautiful because it's not functioning.
Right. Well, the chair needs to feel good when you sit in it, but it also needs to look good when you walk in the room because these are props. 90% of the time when we walk through our house, most of the things are props and we only get to really use them or sit in them a really small percentage of their lifespan. One of the things I like to tell people is, or I like to show people and then execute, is to be bold where you need to be bold and not be afraid. So the things that people think are risky, for me, are not risky at all. It'd be risky not to do it because then when you walk in the room, you're going to be, what is that big hole over there in that area? Nothing's filling it. And then somebody puts something tragic in the space that isn't, that doesn't quite it doesn't quite meet the needs, of your eye when you walk in.
It sounds like a science.
Well, you kind of
very intimidating.
I am sciencey. I am a nerd.
She's a rule follower.
That's right. You told us you're a rule follower.
I mean, I do follow rules to a point.
And then you break them.
Well, then you have to. So you just get disgusted and have to.
What rules should we all be following?
The first rule is to always hire an interior designer.
There you go.
All right, done. We're hiring you.
Yeah, you have to have an expert and you have to listen to them. I also think it's important for a rule in a room is to think about how you're going to live in it. People really enjoy rooms that they spend a lot of time in, and you have to make sure that when you program the space that you are meeting the needs of the purpose of the room and also paying attention to the architecture. Do you know, some of the biggest struggles are you buy, a classic home in a classical style, and then you want to introduce all kinds of furniture and applications that maybe would better be suited for like an Art Deco building, or you have to be really careful with mid-century modern. You have to pay attention to the space that you're investing in.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where, you want to multiply the effects of the architecture and you want to multiply the effects of your interiors. And the best way to do that is if they are compatible and they get along.
Are there ways that someone like me could update the space so that I could fit? So say I bought a home, like you said, a very classic architectural home, and then I'm more I'd say my style is mid-century.
Right.
How do you work with someone?
You bought the wrong house.
Do I buy a new house?
Yes.
What if the layout's great? What if the
Karen's
yard's
laughing.
great?
I don't think she really feels that way.
Well, I can answer your question. I think that if you have classic proportions in your house and you are a lover of mid-century, then you need to find some new design, some of these current designers that are doing stylistically mid-century modern, but they're doing it in far greater scale than the original pieces were. The original pieces were designed for much smaller spaces with lower ceilings. So now great furniture, lighting designers right now are kind of beefing up some of those proportions so that they look really good in a larger room with a higher ceiling.
That's great. That's great.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
I think we can all think of like homes that we've been to or spaces that we've been in where they tried to fit like a farmhouse kitchen into a mid-century modern house, and you're like, why is there an apron sink here? Or I don't know. I'm sure there's better examples.
I was just talking to a client about that who has a 1925 house that we're renovating up in Connecticut, and I shared, you really can't put the rough-hewn beams in the ceiling in this house because everybody is going to know then you're advertising that it's added on. So you have to, yes, you can do something to the ceiling and you can have beams, but maybe you should paint them. So yeah, you have to know. It's just like when women dress. You can't wear something that's unattractive on you, no matter how much you love it on that magazine page.
That's true. Good
It is
point.
exactly how you dress.
So
you need
true.
to wear your rooms and they need to suit your lifestyle.
Right.
That's super important.
And I guess to that point, like you could pull out maybe some bell bottoms or something from a past, inspired by the past, but you would never like wear it in totality of how you wore it then. You know what I mean? You would sort of
like, you only wear bell bottoms if you have a certain shape.
Right. No, true.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't
or
suit
if you're
everyone.
knock-kneed.
Right.
Because then you
and then maybe if you're 4 feet tall, maybe you wear a flared arm instead of wearing a bell bottom pant.
You are exactly
you get the same
100%
vibe,
right.
but it's just a different point of view.
Right. And that's the way people look put together. When they think about their form and what they're putting on it. Same thing with a room.
I feel like we can all just end the episode here because
done.
Well, I love
Taryn
that
has more
solution.
questions.
So
She
I
has
have
like
more
4 pages
questions
over there.
because
Good.
I just feel like I'm, when you're talking to
Do it.
experts, you want to ask all
Milk
the
it.
dumb questions
Yeah.
I have.
I love dumb questions.
Okay. Well, this kind of goes off of what you just said, which again is taking, being realistic with your space and realizing what you have. But are there certain style kitchens you see on the trend right now or that you're always gravitating to, or does it change job by job?
It changes job by job. I will honestly tell you, although I love a white kitchen, I would like to see kitchens addressed in a more dynamic way. Yes.
Karen's
One
raising
of
her
my
hand.
Yes.
very favorite things that I saw in your portfolio, and I don't know if it's something that you typically do in kitchens, but it was it really to me brought the kitchen to life. It was an island, and I feel like it was a very sleek kitchen with kind of sleek dark hardware. I mean dark cabinets and maybe white countertop. I can't remember exactly, but at the end of this floating island, you had put this antique, it's not really a demi-lune, but this piece of furniture flush up at the end of the island. And I was just like, oh my God, that's brilliant, because it's another little surface, but mostly it's the juxtaposition of those styles and putting something alive in a kitchen, which is, to me, cabinets are so sort of like industrial feeling, even if they're, very traditional, they're modular sort of. And that.
Well, I know the kitchen. It was a waterfall countertop.
Yes.
The marble went down the side, which made the perfect backdrop for something organic. And I believe it was an Asian table, and it had all these really strong feminine curves in the legs, and it created a beautiful silhouette against that stone. So the juxtaposition of something clean and modern with something that was obviously had some age on it and was very organic was irresistible to me. That it was a functional surface, I think made it even better, and was how I could talk them into it.
Right.
But I think that that's really important you see waterfalls all the time with stone, and I think they're really great. I have them in my own kitchen, but on one side I've stacked old suitcases and have a sculpture at the end. I don't want to miss an opportunity.
Well, I think that's a reoccurring theme in your work: sleekness and modern versus this like patinaed, crackling old, like architectural sort of
Stuff.
What's the word I'm thinking of? Like
Well, it crusty. I mean, I like to use something that looks like it has a history and a story to tell. So things are really crusty, and they look like they used to have a better life than they have now. So almost a piece of furniture or an ornament that looks like it's fallen. Do you know what I mean? Fallen in stature. And now it's become casual again. And it's great to clean it up with crisp linen, white stone. I feel like when you walk into a space, it would be really nice if it provoked thought as well as, the admiration for beauty. I think that when you see a couple things together, I think it's great to challenge the way you normally think about something so that you become intellectually stimulated, and not just visually stimulated.
drop the mic.
Look, as I sit here and think. I had a question that goes along with that kind of talking about that, bringing the aged into the area. I know you're also a lover of shiny things.
I
You
love shiny things.
Okay. So what if I love shiny and I don't want to overdo shiny? Because you do a great job with balance. How do I not overdo my shiny obsession?
Well, shiny, first of all, you can use as much shiny as you like. You just have to make sure that it is paired and matched, like gesture for gesture, note for note, with something that absorbs the light as well. So it's, again, you want the energy being kind of absorbed in, but then also reflecting out. I feel like jewelry. Most people don't wear shiny clothes from top to bottom, but they accentuate with shine in their jewelry. So if you want to wear a lot of jewelry, that's great. I obviously like to wear a lot of jewelry, but I'm also wearing a black matte texture. So they're both play off each other.
Back to fashion.
Yeah, but you can't be gratuitous with your shine. That's very hard.
Right. Then you're Vegas.
Well, and it seems like if everything's shiny, then your earrings don't stand out, or your whatever, light fixture or whatever.
Well, whenever you have a dinner party, I always think about who I'm inviting and how they're going to interact, because I think that makes for a really successful dinner party. And some people are shiny things and other people absorb things. So you have to have a good combination of more social people and people that really want to listen and absorb.
That's true, because if they're all talkers,
it gets loud.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you don't hear anything.
And no one's listening to anyone.
No. No, it hurts my ears.
Karen only invites Matt people to her parties.
Oh,
I'm
you do?
such
You
a
have
talker.
boring parties?
I'm kidding. No, she throws good parties. It was a joke.
I always think about that. I always think about
interesting.
Who's going to sit next to who is going to pull another person out of their shell. Everybody has hidden stores within them, and you want to make sure that you put them in their best position so that they can share what's inside them. Because, we all socialize with the same people over and over again. We've got to start looking at them in different ways.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, you talked about, again, back to the shiny, and then mixing metals. And you said, I've read somewhere that you love mixing metals.
I do.
Are there any rules there?
I think that you need to kind of stick to two metals. Let's just say silver and gold, and pewter, which is a derivative of silver. So I think that when you're mixing metals, there are really shiny metals, and then there are metals that look like you've just dug them out of the earth. So I think that you need to, yes, I like the shiny metals, but also think about their origin. So there's different levels of reflectivity in metals that also have to be paid attention to. I also like oil rub bronze goes with everything, but unlacquered brass right now is really popular. And I love it because it ages and it changes. So that is a metal that you can introduce into almost any space.
Do you feel like that's going to be going out of style?
Everybody has been saying that.
Everyone asks me, and I'm like, it's just beautiful.
People do
if
keep
you love it, it's
questioning it.
beautiful.
Well, they do keep questioning it, but when was the last time that it was in style? And it was a really shiny brass, like when was it, the 80s?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
And it was sort of lacquered, yeah.
Yeah, it was lacquered. But now it's come back in a way that it's growing and changing and evolving, just like us.
Yes.
How we used brass in the 80s versus how we use brass now.
Well, yeah, I think that that's something to consider because it used to, and before the 80s, then when was it used? So
Right.
I think that what you need to do is consider the fact that you can have it in your home, and if it ages properly, it will never go out of style.
But things are going to go out of style. I feel like people really fixate on what is the thing that I need to avoid because it
won't be trendy.
Yeah.
Well,
but
if it's beautiful design, you don't have to worry. Right?
I agree with you. You don't want someone to look at a room you did and give you the date in which you did that room.
Right.
True.
So, and it's a really good investment if you are, and that's why I like to couple the classic with the edgy or the more modern, because that's a way to fight the trend that goes in and out of style.
Okay.
And if their relationships are good, then they also don't go in and out of style. So that is a real concern for people that do what I do for a living, because you're always getting this is the new light fixture. This is the new chair. It's like, this is the new drug. Try it. But it's all in how you use it.
Yeah.
And it's wasteful to do an environment that is so of that day,
Right.
that, the next year you're going to be tired of it.
So would you, because I guess when I think of like a house that you walk in and you're like, oh boy, that was like 1990 or whatever with the, I guess maybe the like unlacquered brass was kind of then too. But it's like, it's that finish on every single thing. So maybe what you're saying about mixing, like what finishes you're doing helps to, you've walked into that house that's like, it's the same faucet on and handles and cabinet knobs and trim around the shower door. It's literally all the same. It's all matching. So then it really does. There's no dimension at all. So maybe that's just one way that people can avoid it by not like universally using something across
their whole house.
The whole house,
Everything has to be used sparingly.
Yeah.
I think just a lot of different things.
All the things.
All the things sparingly.
One of each of all the things.
Well, you were talking about decorating and furnishings, but one of the things I'm finding is I am being asked to help houses that were built in the 80s.
Oh.
Because there's that look.
Yeah.
That maybe wasn't excellent.
Hey now.
No.
I'm totally kidding.
Oh, we all know.
No, I know. And that is always a challenge. Great civilizations are always born out of a need. And so hopefully people will take some of those houses that were built then and they'll do some really great things.
But what are they doing? What can we do to an 80s house?
Well, I just finished work on a house that was built in the 80s on Lake Martin. And
it's going to be on the cover of Atlanta Homes and Lifestyle.
I love
Just
Lake Martin.
FYI, if you want to go pick that up.
Ooh.
Thank you for saying something. It is, it's absolutely, when I first walked into the house, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So I started paying attention to, I worked with the homeowner and the architect, and I started paying attention to the outside, bringing the environment into the house. There are certain things that you can do even with paint to pull things into shadow that maybe weren't your favorite feature. I did that at Kips Bay when I did it last year. I walked into a room that was basically a very unattractive box. And I thought, well, I'm going to paint it all dark green.
Yeah.
So that it recedes. And everything I put in that room was white or shiny. And so you didn't even notice those walls.
And lots of drapery. Was that the room with lots of drapery?
Yeah, there were 2 walls of drapery.
And then like all the prints, right?
Yeah. They were archaeological prints.
Oh yeah, because you didn't even. I don't even know what the wall looked like. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
You I looked at the picture.
Proof that it worked.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
So that's a great idea. Okay, so kind of even bring those into the shadows and then lighten up with your actual.
Well, it's Taryn. I feel like that's sort of what you did, maybe not knowingly, in your brown.
My brown paneled den with a brown leather sofa and a brown dog. So she didn't paint the dog; she painted the paneling.
I painted everything I could.
Peacock blue.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sounds fantastic.
Well,
I love paneling. When was the paneling originally installed?
60s.
I really love painting the paneling.
You can imagine what it was. It had nice brown.
Oh, yes, I can.
Oh.
You don't want to walk into a room and disappear, right?
Well, that's what the dog was doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Camo.
No, but
Camouflage.
that's a great idea of just how to hide those.
Well, I want to talk more about this house on Lake Martin because I actually, when I saw the exterior, I think there was one shot of like, I don't think it was a pool, but it looked sort of like a pool, but it was actually the dock.
It was an infinity pool, wasn't it?
It's an infinity pool.
Oh, okay.
It looked like it was part of the lake.
Yeah.
Well, and it does, even when you're in the house. And the funny thing is the house has got this, it's on this point. And when you walk into the main room of the house, you look like you could continue walking right into the water of the lake. And the pool is designed so that it spills out
was
or
gorgeous.
appears to spill out into the
Mhm,
lake. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I love the exterior, and I know that that's post
Right.
renovation, but like, what about an 80s house like that should we salvage and like is good, and what maybe is what are the parts that we camouflage?
Well, one of the things that I thought about you have to think about what an 80s house, what are its positive attributes?
Mm-hmm.
It really absorbs modern furniture really well. It really does. It looks so good with a more contemporary aesthetic introduced to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope that everyone will see that when they see the magazine article. But honestly, I was so excited because I could do something that most of my clients don't come to me for.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that project. It was a play of light and shadow. It brought the outside in, and I could use forms in strict rhythm, but with lines that I don't think that I'm normally known for. So it was
Like curvilinear?
Well, it was just modern. I used furniture manufacturers that I had never used before because this furniture happened to look really great in that house. Some houses, you walk a piece of furniture in it and it spits it right out. It just doesn't go. But this house, all those pieces of furniture that I've always wanted to use because they're super comfortable and I really respect the way they're made and how they got to be, what they are. And you put them in this house and it was a love affair. I really was so attracted to it. I mean, that you've been successful if you think to yourself, well, I want a house like this. And that was an 80s house.
Yeah. This never had that thought occurred to you.
No,
I'm
it hadn't.
dying for an 80s house now.
Well, I liked that the article spoke to again, you thinking through your visual line too,
Mhm.
to speak to scale and balance is you want to see the lake.
Mhm.
So you made sure the scale of the furniture and it was not in the way of you seeing the lake. Is that?
Yes. I wanted to make sure that you could look over it and through it. When you're in that main living room, you feel like you're on a ship and on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Because the water appears to come right up to the living room. So it's kind of like it's a little bit of a visual trick. But I also painted that entire room out very dark. It's a really dark bronze color. And the reason why we did that was to carry your eye out into the water. White will stop your eye and keep you in the room, but a darker color will kind of release you and let you see the green or the blue beyond.
Interesting. I never would have thought of that.
Again,
Usually-
it's a little sciencey.
Yeah, you think lake house, I'd want it to be light, but that's so smart.
What's the name of the color on the walls?
I think sealskin.
Okay.
Sherman-Williams. I think it's sealskin.
See,
But there's other good colors. Black fox, sealskin. I got to tell you, when we walked through that house for the first time with the architect, David Baker, we walked through the house and I was like, oh
no.
Did the architect say, oh no, as well?
Well, no, he knew.
He knew.
You know what? When you're working with somebody, you really want to work with somebody that really knows what they're doing. And he knew that he could only do so much. And then we had to decorate our way out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, it's true. And I believe he probably shared that with our client.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I can only go so far. And the house is really great because there is a living space as well as a bedroom for each of the two children and for the parents. So it's almost as if there are 3 separate apartments that connect to the one separate space, and 2 guest rooms. So the space that you had was really fantastic for a family, that was going to pretty soon have 2 teenagers in it, always be entertaining in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood why we were keeping the house because you really couldn't beat the programming of it.
Mm-hmm.
And its position on that point was incredible.
It was spectacular. I mean, truly, it was like, well, it's funny, Karen, that you said you think of a lake and you want light and bright. But when I think of a lake, I think of like that dark lake water. It's like very moody and like, I think of like winter on a lake. I don't know why, but
You should go to Lake Martin right now
it's
in the
clear.
spring. It is so beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful lakes I've ever seen in my life. And in fact, I shouldn't even have said its name.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't want everybody
don't
to
go
go
look or buy any property there.
No, but it was really very soothing.
Mhm.
I do love it there. And while I'm thinking of it, I do want to add one more point with the contemporary furniture in an 80s house. We went to town on texture.
Mhm.
And that's how we made it feel really warm and comfortable. We put a lot of hide rugs down and made sure that there was fuzzy and organic things everywhere.
Do you like to put, speaking to your point about being able to see through things, do you like to put furniture in front of a window in that type of scenario where you're trying to draw your eye out to the lake, or how do you
I do.
lay out a room?
Yeah, I do like to put things in front of windows. If you put something in front of a window, you're compelling your eye to go to that thing, but then to the right of it, you have an entire expanse where you see through the window. I think that it shows, people are always talking about preserving a view. Well, once you've seen the view once, you keep it in your head. And you're going to see that view when you walk through that house all the time. Don't underestimate what your mind can carry with you. And if you go into a house that doesn't put anything in front of windows at all, doesn't challenge the view at all, doesn't meet it, isn't a partner with it, it gets really weak and thin.
Okay. So if we have a living room, say, that has a big bank of windows, we shouldn't necessarily situate the sofa to look at the view. We should maybe is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I think that you can block portions of the view.
Okay.
It all depends on how you're going to socialize and use the space. We have to remember that, yes, we love the view, but that's not the only thing you're going to be doing in that room.
Right.
Is looking at the view. It's really important, and people should really pay attention to the human factor when they're working on a house and how people are going to live in that house, and enjoy it and function in every one of those rooms. So it's really just a question of if there's enough seating, if it's going to create conversation spaces. I really feel that nothing is so precious.
Mm-hmm.
You can think about it like this. I have just spent a lot of your money, and I have really beautifully paneled this entire wall, and it is stunning. And then you walk in and you look at the wall and you think, oh, that's really great. And it's got a great finish on it. And then I go and I hang a huge piece of art on it. And people say, don't cover up that wall. And I'm thinking, I just made that wall better. It is now a host. So I think that it's really important that you can layer those, let it go, forgive yourself, layer the excellence, one on top of the other.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that
makes sense.
if not, it's going to get boring.
Right.
You're just going to be there in another year. You're
Well,
going
and
to
you're right. It highlights the view
Yes, it
instead of
does.
covering the view. Because it just grabs your eye and pulls it over there.
And sometimes I like to hang really shapely things on square windows.
Like
She acted out a circle with her hand.
like a mirror, a sculpture,
Yeah.
an architectural piece or something.
Yeah.
I
just
have
something to draw
a
your
mirror
eye.
hanging on one of my windows, and I realized the other day I was out on the deck looking in, and it has
you
the
have
price
to-
tag on the back.
Oh, no. Well,
And it's been on there for like 4 years.
you should have felted the back.
I should have.
Then you would have noticed that price tag.
Oh, well, I'll do that
So is that what
next.
you do? Like if you are going to hang a
So it's pretty.
painting or something on a window, how do you treat the back?
Well, I usually put a piece of felt on it,
Okay.
usually a dark piece of felt.
Okay.
Or something like that, because I've looked into a lot of windows.
Creepers.
Sometimes you get bored and you want to drive around and look in people's windows. And that cleans up that elevation,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
makes it go away.
Makes sense. One thing I want to ask.
It's so true.
So a lot of the rooms and homes you do are large. A lot of the rooms are large. Several seating areas, that kind of thing. And I think many homes these days
You're nodding hesitantly.
are big, a lot of square footage, and they're open plans, and people have no idea how to arrange the furniture in them. They're pushing it all up against the wall, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do we fill up really large rooms? Because your rooms, even though they're dramatic and wonderful scale, they don't feel intimidating. They don't feel cavernous. They feel really like I just want to get in there and sit down and read my book.
Well, again, I'm always paying attention to the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from the architecture to the people in the room, and what's in between is the decorating and the pieces of furniture you put in there. I don't necessarily, sometimes, like with a banquette, you can push something up against a wall, but for the most part, I really don't like doing that. Nobody likes to feel cornered. I start in the center of the room, and I place the furniture around the center of the room where it makes the most human sense to interact. And then I go around then the back of those pieces and I fill in, because that can create, a very deep console behind a sofa that's floating in the middle of the room is now a desk or a chair and a desk. Or a game table. So I think that it's important to start at the center, arm's length to some of these chairs so that you can have conversations, and then come around. I am going to tell you that space planning for me and drawing a furniture plan is one of the most rewarding things that I do and the most important step in my process. That is really where it starts. That is the foundation of, I think, creating a really good interior. People need to draw it out. If you draw it and it works and it fits, then in real life, you don't have to worry about it. If I had $1 for every time someone said to me, this all is not going to fit in the room, and I'm like, yes, it's going to fit because I drew it. So I think that drawing is really important.
I want to ask the reverse question, because from what Karen asked, because there were certain rooms or spaces in your portfolio that you could tell were maybe smaller scale, not the scale that Karen was talking about, but you still had very large furniture pieces in them, or, maybe a huge accessory so I'm curious how to use oversized pieces in a small home and creating a space that doesn't feel too cluttered, but still feels cozy.
I think that you need to use a few very large pieces in a smaller room, because it almost creates this ohm effect. It calms the space down, and then you can start introducing the smaller pieces in. I think that if you have a really small room, I'm going to say, let's put one really big thing in it. And then everything else is in service to that one really big thing. You see that a lot in restaurant design. You have a banquette in the corner with a table and then little chairs around it. If you were to just wall that off, that would be a really small room. But everybody wants to be there because it's cozy. And I can say in my own home, which was a 1925 Tudor, the rooms aren't as generous in size as they are for my clients, because everybody goes to that open plan right now. So there are a lot more larger rooms, but they serve more than one function.
So divide them up mentally.
So you have to divide it up mentally, like drop those imagined walls in.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's such a great dilemma this week. I love the images. It explains what's going on. And this one is from Eileen.
Come on, Eileen.
That's probably like,
80s, This is an 80s themed episode.
All right.
Oh gosh, I'll probably never get an 80s house again.
All right. Eileen writes and says, hi all. I've been listening to the podcast almost since the very beginning, and I really enjoy it, but really struggle with decorating and haven't been brave enough to send photos. Nevertheless, although I would still rather not be published, I need help with several things and would love to get your thoughts. And she's very lucky.
Your house is cute.
Yes.
I know. It is a very cute home. And to have
Why don't
expert
you want us to share,
advice.
Eileen?
She has 4 bullet questions.
Okay. Her first is my rug too small? It's about 8 by 11 and the room is about 15 and a half by 19 feet. If too small, would you layer it over seagrass? Replace it with a seagrass? I tend to like beachy looks. Also, I know you have said seagrass is forgiving of spills, but I need a rug that will hold up under the paws, toenails of 3 dogs.
Okay, let's answer that one question first.
What do you think about her rug?
The rug is too small.
Oh.
But It isn't small if you turn it in the other direction and you run it only in a portion of the room that captures the furniture. So she pulls her chairs and her sofa closer to each other so that you can actually have a conversation from one to the other. It's not such a great leap. Then all of a sudden the rug is an island.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to save the lives of the chairs and the sofa. So they need to be pulled in so that they're resting on the rug. And there can be space behind, like, for instance, the sofa, like I talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and the chairs that will open up the space by those windows.
Yeah, she has you could not reach the coffee table if you were sitting in those chairs.
And there's
It's
no
too
way.
far away. Yeah. And even the sofa could be closer to the coffee table. You know what I mean? Like, just enough room for your knees, you know?
I'm about this much. What is this, 15 inches?
Yeah, I'd say 15.
Anywhere from 15, 18, maybe
Mhm.
12 if it's really tight room.
Yeah.
Just enough to kind of walk by and sit down. But remember, the table is in service to you. The table it's not just to hold coffee table books. It is so that you can put something down on it.
Mhm. Yeah.
It is supposed to be a functional piece of furniture. And we can make this cocktail table much more functional by having it engage in a relationship with the sofa and the chairs.
Right.
And she kind of speaks that in her next bullet point, which says, I have 80s matching wood tables, and I've been looking for a coffee table. What width and shape? There's approximately 6.5 feet between sofa and chairs where they sit in the photos. I could pull the furniture closer together, but my husband hates that we do not take advantage of the size of the room. He would like to shove everything to the walls and windows.
That's funny that he thinks it's wasting
I
the
just
room.
think
Susan's
that
making
too.
the best face.
Yeah. Like, why does he think it's wasting the room?
I feel like we need to.
He can get more out of this room.
Yeah.
You know, I used to design for attorneys and hallways. And so I think of space as billable square footage. And right now he could get a lot more billable square footage out of this room if he pulled everything together and then brought more things into the room
Mhm.
to make it feel a little bit more layered and closer.
I emailed Eileen back after she sent us this and said, Eileen, is this room, do you have to pass through this room to get to other rooms? And she said, yes. So like you're saying, they need to be able to walk behind the sofa instead of walking through the middle of the furniture arrangement, which is how they have it set up now, which is why I think she has it so far apart, because she wants to be able to walk through it. Like, no, mush all that together and walk behind it to get
Could she?
from this end, this whatever, down to the other end.
I think that she talked about cocktail tables,
Mhm.
and she needs to put a cocktail table that goes all the way to the floor. Her chairs and her sofa are all on legs.
Mhm.
So everything in this room is on legs and nothing's grounding it to that rug. So I'm never a fan of matching cocktail tables with end tables. So there needs to be, I think the cocktail table needs to find another home. And if she put a cocktail table that went to the floor,
Mhm.
even a
Mhm.
block of wood
Mhm.
or an organic root system of some kind plopped into the middle of this would help ground the space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Agreed.
like the way she's laid out the furniture, or do you feel like aside from it being too far apart, but should she relocate? Should she turn stuff?
I'm
in a
going to
different
describe
direction?
her room, okay? It's a rectangle. She has a fireplace at one end with built-in bookshelves that cover that entire wall. And then on the long walls, that's a short wall. On the long walls, she has a window on one side, 2 chairs in front of that window facing in. And on the opposite wall, she has a sofa facing those 2 chairs. And that's kind of all that's in here.
And a big case opening.
And a doorway down by the fireplace.
Honestly, you know, it's really hard to make a judgment with one elevated image.
Right.
But she may want to think about taking those 2 chairs, putting them on either side of the fireplace, and turning the sofa so that you see its back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bet it would all fit nicely on that rug. And then you could put a sofa table behind that sofa and or a console behind it and do something really interesting and sculptural either on top of it or under it. But there is another way to arrange this room and still get your traffic patterns.
Or even, like you said, a game table, because it looks like a really deep room and they could have a couple functions happening in here. They could hang out by the sofa
What do
and
they do
chat
in
with
this room?
friends. Yeah, that's what we
I
need to
suspect
know.
this room is just a walkthrough.
Eileen, what are you doing
Well, she
in
does
there?
have the TV.
Where's the TV?
To the right. It's to the right of the fireplace.
And
How do
put
they
it
watch
right
it?
over the fireplace.
Yeah.
I mean,
But even
I
in
know
that
people
other,
hate to do that, but
even in that under
You
the
know what?
arrangement, it would
If you
work.
give us permission, then
no, honestly, I think that it's, electricity, it's here to stay. Televisions are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And they're a big part of our lives, and we're fooling ourselves if we don't just acknowledge that. So I would suggest putting a really big TV over that fireplace and always have a beautiful movie on it. So, invest in some great cinematography based movies.
They have those screensavers now that you can use on your television. So so you can put
Should get one of those?
images up, art or something.
Her next bullet point is about the lighting in the room. Right now, she doesn't have any lamps that we can see in the photo, but she does have two.
What are those?
Well, what do you even call those?
They're like
so she has an
spotlights,
angled
but-
ceiling, and there's two.
Oh boy, I see him now.
Susan sees them now.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see him in the top photograph. but I
Yes,
see
she
them
wants
now.
to know. She says, "I know." Yikes again.
Pull 'em down and throw 'em on the
She wants to know
curb.
what to do. They're like
My suggestion would be
Spotlight.
to put the light where the people are. So the light hits you on the side of your face and not shrouding from your forehead down so that you
It shows
create
all of your
shadow.
age.
I would
Might help.
probably remove these light fixtures and put some great lamps in the room. And just, you can put lamps in for ambiance as well. Like, is there a way to get some kind of a lit object on that mantle on either side? You know, sconces, maybe. It really depends how deep you want to go. And if
Yeah.
you're going to hire the electrician and get somebody in there and electrify and give you some connectivity.
so on the cheap end. Take out those patch the ones on the ceiling and get yourself some good
Lamps.
lamps. And on the next level, you could put in some kind of sconces on either side of your TV after you mount it to your wall above your fireplace.
Or they have really great lamps that you can put actually in bookshelves. There are some companies that even do bookends that are lamps, and you can light this whole thing up.
Bring it to life.
Yeah.
That's clever. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that is smart.
Bookend lamp. Maybe we need
Yeah,
a
you need a lot more lamps.
Okay,
Eileen.
she has one more bullet point. She asked, how do you feel about the style of the mirror behind the sofa for this room? Its shape is the same as the large window across from it. If kept, should I paint the frame? Does it need something on the walls beside it? It's centered over the sofa and centered across from the window. And the sofa is about 90 inches long, mirror 40 inches wide. I don't have anything else on that wall. I have contemplated sconces, but cannot picture any that would look good there. If you can suggest sconces, what style? I struggle with how I'm going to put lots of lamps lighting in this room. There's a piano. Oh, see, we should have read all the points. There's a piano on the front right corner with two lamps on it that you cannot see, and a dog crate in the left one.
All right, so her mirror is a Palladian style window, and it has a sort of a black, looks like iron frame. And the rest of the room is cream with a navy sofa and sort of cream chairs.
I think that the mirror, I suspect the mirror may be too small for that wall. And if you have a really big wall, you need to put a really big piece of art on it or tile in a sequence, something that can relate to the architecture. That mirror probably needs to be on a smaller wall, some other place in her house where she needs to introduce light, like a hallway, because then it can reflect light and give and add to the feeling of a tight space. But right now, where it's placed, it's directly across from a window, so it's probably directing right back out that window. And I think I'd like to see it bigger.
Yeah, because it ends like at the back of the sofa. It could go all the way to the floor. Like it could really fill that whole wall.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it when art dips below the back of a sofa. So you want to layer it. Again, it's the same principle of you really have this beautifully paneled wall. It has this great finish on it. And then you put a big piece of art on it. It's just another layering technique.
Bigger.
Yeah.
I'm always going to say bigger. I mean, and then bigger and fewer.
Yeah.
Right. Bigger and fewer, gang things together so that it gives them more power. But yeah, bigger and fewer.
And then she struggles with how to put a lot of lamps in the room. Why? Just put them in there. Floor lamps, table lamps. Every table, put a lamp on it.
Well, also those little apothecary lamps, the reading lamps.
Yeah.
Those each of these chairs should have one.
Right.
And as far as connectivity, you know, I haven't met a rug that I haven't put a hole in to run a cord through. You know, and I tell my clients that we are going to have to probably put a little cut in this, depending on what kind of a rug it is.
What do you cut it with? Like a box cutter?
Yeah.
Razor blade. Yeah. Or carpet cutter. You know those things?
No.
But there might not be an outlet in this floor. So it might be along the wall.
Now, if you have a crawl space, is it difficult to put? I mean, obviously you got to have an electrician, but
No, it's not if you have a crawl space.
Okay.
I think that's a really good idea. But make sure if you're going to put a sunken outlet in your floor, that it is truly sunken so that when you put your plug in, you don't have a bump in your carpet. The whole, the head of the
has to be below the floor.
has to below the floor.
So it looks almost like, okay, just to describe to people what they're looking for. And there's several, but the ones I've seen, it looks like if you've ever been to a theater and they have these little like metal, it looks like a little metal circular like cover on the floor, right? And it has a little trap door. And so you're going to have this little circular thing on your floor, and then there's a door that you're going to pop up, and then the whole essentially cord,
the plug part,
is down in there.
Yeah.
But they sell that casing, is what you're saying. That metal hardware thing you shove in your floor comes standard.
It all comes in a box at Lowe's.
Good to know. I have not done it.
Because I bought one.
And did you crawl under your house?
Have I not told y'all the story of
You love
the
to wire
electrician-
things.
Of the electrician?
Of which one?
I feel like I've told this on the podcast before, but I had the electrician come to my house.
Is this when the lights didn't work? And it was just because your light bulbs were burned
No,
out?
that was another time. The electrician thinks I'm an idiot. But no, I wanted to put two lamps on either side of my fireplace, and it's an exterior wall. And so he was telling me like it would be very difficult to put the outlet on the wall. So he was like, yeah, I just really can't. And, you know, I'm going to have to like tear out the wall. Anyways, long story short, I was like, can't you just put it on the floor? And he's like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, okay, dude, well, let me do that. And he's like, but I only have one brass and one silver
In his truck?
in my truck.
Was his truck broken? He couldn't drive to Lowe's?
You know, are you okay with that? And I was like, no.
Absolutely not.
And he was like, okay, well, like I can come back tomorrow. And I was like, there's a Lowe's like 5 minutes from the house. Can I like go get it at Lowe's? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. And I'm like, okay. All right, buddy, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And then you can
Problem
do
solved.
a matching set on the floor.
I love that story because I like that you were not limited and you didn't accept no for an answer.
That's right.
You know, I love that. There's always a way to figure it out.
Well, I was very proud of myself.
Good
So
job,
thank you for
Caroline.
saying that.
You should be, because so many people get discouraged.
Well, I will put a picture of my awesome thing so that you know what you should look for.
Yeah.
Because it is, or we can just put a link to it. That works too.
Well, Eileen, I feel like you've got a good start in here.
I mean, she's got some
Fun
great
pieces.
stuff.
I think it's great that Eileen loves beautiful things.
Yes.
And she just wants to know how to put them together.
Yeah.
She
Keep
has a
working
good
at it.
start.
Drag that stuff around.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for being our guest today. I feel like this
Susan,
was a
we
really
loved
good
having you.
episode. So hopefully people had some takeaways.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Come back anytime.
Oh, I will.
Can you tell people where they can find you, follow you on social media?
SusanFerrier.com.
All right.
SusanFerrierInteriors.com.
Done.
Okay.
It's a beautiful site.
Oh, thank you.
Really pretty.
Thanks.
So that was our interview with Susan Ferrier. Again, Atlanta interior designer, fabulous, fabulous guest.
How great is it to hear Karen on the show again?
I know. I know from the beginning,
love
Liz,
listening
you
to
were
Karen.
such a listener. And so I almost feel like you were there. But yeah, it's fun to kind of hear Karen again. We miss her, but we know she's busy. So next week, we've got one of Liz's episodes. I don't even know what you picked, Liz. So I can't wait to hear.
I think I'm going to have to crowdsource this one.
Okay.
So many.
I know. Well, it was hard. I will say, I kind of mentioned this in the intro, but I listened to Markham Roberts because I just absolutely loved him.
So
and that
good.
was kind of on my short list. I listened to Tom Shearer. I listened to Katie Ritter. So those were some of my favorites. I didn't end up picking them because, again, I listened to the Susan one and was like, this was so good. So I had to pick it. But if you are kind of interested in a couple others, then those were good ones too. But you got to go way back in the archives. Tune back in next week for Liz's episode, which I cannot wait to see which one you picked. And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
Happy
decorating.
decorating.